How can you resist to those shiny big eyes? You simply can't. Enjoy the intro and let's start. Hello everyone, Phoenixo here and welcome to another video of a multi-part series in which I'm gonna show you the whole process that brought me from the default cube till the animation you just saw. In this video, first we are gonna finish shading the body and then we are gonna work on the eyes. Let's start talking about normal map. Retopology was something necessary to have a good looking mesh, easy to rig and easy to animate. But doing so, I lost many details that you can achieve only with sculpting. And that's why we are gonna sculpt a bit today. Disable the subdivision surface modifier and let's add a multi-resolution modifier. Subdivide a few times, like 4 times, jump into the sculpting panel and have fun. In this way you are sculpting in a kind of non-destructive way. If you choose the 4th sculpting level, you will sculpt with that level of details. So you can sculpt at different level of details and you can also choose which level to show in the viewport. The way I'm gonna use the multires modifier is that I will bake those extra sculpted details into a normal map that will be connected to the normal input of the principal BSDF shader. In this way I will get some extra details with a simple texture, keeping the mesh as simple and clean as possible. I have to be honest with you, don't think you can add too complicated details, as the baking operation, at least to me, doesn't return always the result I want. Use this approach to add little extra details that can improve the general look of the mesh without turning it upside down. As already done with the other textures, create a new image for the multires normal map and save it. Add an image texture node in the shader editor. Keep the node disconnected and select the image you just created. Switch to Cycle Render Engine, go to the Bake section, check Bake from multires with Bake type normal. At this point you have to choose the viewport level of subdivision in the multires modifier. That's gonna influence the map you will bake. The lower is the number of subdivisions you choose, the more details you're gonna get. I don't think that the number of samples of the render influences the output. Please leave me a comment if you know otherwise. At this point you can disable the multires modifier, but don't delete it, as you may need it later. Enable again the subdivision surface modifier, and in the shader editor connect the texture to the normal input of the shader, adding the normal map node in between. The filled color space of the image texture has to be set as non-color. In this phase I wasn't happy with the outcome I get, so I had to get a bit back and forth, fixing a few sculpting issues and relaxing the mesh, especially around the eyes. The bake operation, of course, will use the UV map you created in the last video, and I found out that I had to relax the UV islands too, so I will use the relax brush to get a better result around the beak and the eyes. After a few trials, I was happy with the result, and I was finally ready to go on. For the tongue, I simply created a new material and assigned to the whole tongue mesh. I changed the color and the roughness, and that's done. Let's talk a bit about the roughness map. As the other textures, I'm gonna create and save a new image, but this time it's gonna be totally white. I'm gonna choose the Mix Blend mode and black color. Connect the image texture node in the shader editor to the roughness input of the shader. And in this way the whole body will have a kind of plastic look. I will reduce the strength of the brush and I'm gonna start painting the texture. Adding different shades of grey to the texture, I'm adding a bit of shiny translucent effect to the portion I'm painting on. I'm gonna use this method for the beak, around the eyes and the claws. After some refining, I'm done with the body and I'm gonna start working on the eyes. Let's start with their shape. I'm just gonna move a few faces to get this curved shape. I'm gonna mark seams, the edge of the iris, and I'm gonna unwrap everything. I'm gonna add a black material for the white part of the eye. I'm gonna assign the iris part of the mesh to the material I call eye iris. And in just a second I'm gonna place the iris UV island in the middle of the UV editor, simply setting 0.5 to the X and Y field of the UV vertex section in the properties menu. In the shader editor, add a gradient texture and set it as spherical. If you have Node Wrangler enabled, click to the gradient texture and press Ctrl T on your keyboard to add a few useful nodes. At this point, add a color ramp and play a bit with its color settings. If you have placed the UV islands in the middle of the UV editor, you can simply set -0.5 to the X and Y locations value of the mapping vector. Now you should have a beautiful black circle for the pupil right in the middle of the iris. As usual, I suggest you to look for dedicated tutorial on YouTube, as many others before me have already created beautiful step-by-step tutorial to achieve this result. At this point, the shader editor will become a bit more confusing, as I'm adding a few other nodes to achieve that radial blue-orange color for the iris. Basically, I'm simply adding other gradient radial textures and I'm merging them with a few noise texture and other color ramps. With this kind of node structure, I'm able to change the color as many times as I want, and I can even change the dimension of the pupil. At this point I'm gonna complete the shape of the eyes. Select the edge of the iris and extrude them outside along the y-axis. Repeat a few times trying to get that semi-spherical look and press F on your keyboard to fill the shape in the middle. With those new created faces selected, create a new material as the one I called Eye Transparent and assign them to it. Then go to the mesh menu on the top, Normals, and click on Recalculate Outside. At this point, don't forget to select Alpha Blend in the Blend mode and Alpha Hashed in the Shadow mode of the Material tab in the Properties menu. Now, if you change all the way down the specular, the roughness, the sheen tint and the alpha value of the material, you can get that I kind of look with even the light reflected out of it. At this point, the shading part of this process is completed. By shading the way I did, I'm able to change a few settings if I change my mind even in the future phases of the process. This journey continues in the next video, in which we're gonna add the feathers to that cute little bird. And there is when the magic really happens. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you will still be part of this journey, and in that case, see ya!